Okay, I think we're ready here. Had my mic muted until the last little bit. Um, and I want to ask how my audio levels are. I think I've got everything set up otherwise. I found the diskette, the secondary diskette drive pretty quickly. Was just adjusting the camera though, and it didn't want to cooperate. But I think I've got it now. And so, as you can see, still the old studio, still a single piece of equipment. And in this case, it is the IBM PS2 Model 80 that I got from Edgar Digital in Las Cruces, New Mexico. There were three systems that were outside: a Model 60, a Model 65 SX, and a Model 80. Now, we've already seen the Model 60. I've gone through, actually, it's just a remainder of cleanup that is needed for that. The I did go into some of the microchannel post code cards at the had a couple videos of that. I actually intended to do a video leading into this Model 80 Type 3. Now, this is the Type 3 planar. This is the 25 megahertz planar that is uh, viewed as the highest end of the conventional Model 80s that had the 386DX CPU. Now, there were system board upgrades, and of course, the aftermarket reply turbo and power boards that you could put in to these cases, but it's viewed as these Type 3s. And there were the Type 1, which is 16 megahertz, 386DX. There's the Type 2, which was a 20 megahertz, 386DX. And the Type 3, that is the 25 megahertz, 386DX. And that's good to hear. The audio levels are good. And I'm glad for all the how I went through on the Model 60, and I had opened these units at home. I did look at them a little bit, but on the insides, just to, of course, see that they were dirty and everything else. See just basically what they had, and the so I know that this Model 80 was the Type 3 planar. I put those sides back on, and I was not, with the three systems, I wasn't really sure. The side covers were dirty, and I wasn't sure if I matched the cases quite well. And I, in fact, did match the cases pretty well, as I figured out. The This Model 80 is about as dirty as that Model 60 case was. And the 65SX, I'll probably plan for next week's live stream, is actually the cleanest system on the case externally. And with the two systems that were left there on the side covers, I figured out that the cover I have on this one is matched to what was on there originally by the stains on top. And it's a Rorschach pattern, ink spot pattern on top, that the side covers are matched to the systems. We will get to the point of taking off the cover and looking to see. And in fact, that was the reason for me chasing down the external, the extra diskette drives. I have the batteries, brand new batteries, to put in there. I pulled the diskettes out. I have not made a configuration diskette, a reference diskette, as of yet, but I'm able to do that which will probably be required in this case. But at least I'm set to do that. I should have these diskettes should be a good enough quality to be able to work with and to create a reference diskette. So basically, I've got duplicates of everything out. Um, I should be able to be able to react to anything that this system throws at me in the process of starting it up and configuring it. And I do want to kick out the this is the link, of course, at the Arden tool with Thomas joining us in the chat. I'm very happy for that. But that is the link at the Arden tool of the Type 3 Model 80 planer. And I have a spare standing by here as well. I can kind of point out. It's interesting because it's actually where Dave Plummer from Microsoft and the YouTube channel Dave's Garage joined the main PS2 group on Facebook, and about it's been a week or so ago, and I think just a little bit over a week, probably closer to like 10 days or a little bit shorter. But as I went through and someone else put up an image of a Model 80 that was very much more clean than this one was, well, you're drinking, and I'm not. And I'm going to explain a little bit too about maybe a little bit how I sound. I think I sound fine, but there may be some coughing, and I definitely have some nasal congestion. Just something that's going around here locally. It's not COVID, but it's making people feel miserable here locally, and they're going through and doing tests. I haven't done a test, but I've had this for a few days and it's come and gone. Usually it's after I awake, just being that I've got to get vertical and get the congestion out of me. And really, yesterday was not as productive as I would have liked for getting around and doing things. I just really stayed home. Okay, and I don't know how far I'll get in kind of like what would be regarded as the first half of the stream. Of course, I started nearly 10 minutes late. I'm doing a lot of lead up here as it is anyway, but you'll at least get to see part of the getting into the case and seeing what we're up against here. And I mean, that's fine. There's even local events that were happening here that I wished I could have seen happening at the same time as right now, but I'll just have to view them in replay as well. And of course, this stream will be available for replay later on as well, that you can get past all the dialogue that I'm going through right now ahead of this. So if I happen to cough, I'll try and mute it with my headset that I just lift the boom, and I'll try and keep up with chat. I've got all the metrics on the system displaying the firewall for the bandwidth out. Looks like it's doing good. Looks like we're seeing a pretty good viewership right now, steadily increasing. And I'm doing real good on the bandwidth out. It's about 4 megabit per second. And I'm not saturating. It's got nice little zigzag. The hard drive is doing fine. Normally I have to power the system on and allow it some time to go through and clear and get the hard drive. It's a laptop, but I think it has a mechanical drive still. I don't think by the performance that I don't have an SSD on that, although I guess I could check in some other time frame. But let's get let me get off the webcam here, and I'll get turned around. I do also have the cooler on, so you can hear a little bit of the noise there. You may not necessarily hear the cicadas outside that are going through and making noise. I maybe could have gone through and got my camera a little bit higher to where I can where my face. I had so much trouble adjusting it this morning, though. I don't know if I will really want to pardon the close up appearance. And see, even adjusting there, it's not, that's about right for the system. And I have the system on the back. I do have the USB diskette drive to it. And the diskettes, I can go through and I can make a reference diskette at the appropriate point. On this system, I haven't downloaded, and that will go right to the Ardent tool. We'll go through, create a reference diskette in real time if we have to. Well, we will have to. I mean, we're getting to the point of configuring this. The battery on this is not going to be good, even if all the other components work, most likely. So, and I can bring it up without the CPU, although, and it's funny, I do have the I have the speaker. Oh, I guess I do have a battery in that. So I do have it. I was looking at the other side and saying, hey, I don't have a battery, but I've got a battery in there. So this is probably a configured planar right here of the this is Model A Type 3. And I was going to say I could go through and pull the speaker connection or whatever else. I'll just probably leave it on. Now it is missing a the CPU going in this socket, and I do have spare CPUs. This is mainly for when I was testing the Blue Lightning CPU upgrade on this planar, just to see that if I could get it to do the CPU reset signature. And of course, Tom, told me that really these the planers don't go through and support that CPU reset. So I was kind of struggling against or tilting against windmills. I was going through and I was swapping both between the 386DX and this the Blue Lightning upgrade, just to kind of see the I've got a whole bunch of stuff off to the side here. And people would say, well, if you don't have a CPU, what's this? And that's the cache controller, because this does have 64 KB of cache that you need the cache controller. And then this also has the numeric coprocessor, the FPU, the 387DX, 25 megahertz. And I don't think that this system here has the math coprocessor. We'll see what it has for a CPU. Now, as I was saying on the Facebook group, somebody showed the much cleaner Type 3 Model 80 planar, and it had a silver cap CPU. But Dave Plummer went through and asked, and he said, as a noob, what is that? And so we explained that that's a Type 3 Model 80 planar, and the distinguishing features. The other thing besides the cache controller, and for the Type 1, the CPU and FPU socket were down in the lower corner, that would obstruct, so in a sense, or the adapter, you had the microchannel adapters in there, it would go across those areas. So IBM for the Type 2, and then later on for the Type 3, went through and they moved the CPU and FPU underneath the drive cage. We'll see the drive cage in a moment with the cover off the side, and really doesn't give much space above these at all. So you have things like the Blue Lightning kind of hugging in to the planar. I mean, they're out of the way of the microchannel adapters, but underneath that drive cage, I mean, if you have any interposer for any 486 level, on the other one, I've got a HyperAce 486, and going through and just the space and everything else. And of course, it's interesting that the 486 DLC 2 of this is without even a heat sink, and is on the underside of this board, nestled against the planar. So I mean, it has no airflow, nothing else for the speed and everything else that this does. So the performance that this board has effectively. And in reality, this is, I mean, for the purposes of a 386DX socket, this is the fastest CPU kind of combination that you can have on something like a Model 80. Of course, there's the HyperAce. There's the stuff that takes it up to being a 486 DX2 or whatever else. Those require heatsink, and so the other distinguishing features are that it's the Type 3 Model 80 planar has 2 AVE slots, the auxiliary video extension slots, and that's kind of unique for that. It is a Japanese design, and maybe that has something to do with the Japanese design. There's also, I believe, the model, and Tom can go through and correct me as well. I thought that there was like we were seeing that the industrial that uses very similar to the Type 2 planar of the Model 70, I think may have 2 AVE slots, but I'm not sure. Say Tom can correct me on that. And then the Type 3 Model 80 is the only PS2 that has a socketed keyboard controller chip. And so that's just some of the things that kind of go through and can stand out. Now, you also see the memory boards hanging off of this. They have the 4 megabyte memory boards. I do have extras out as well for this. And I want people to see the clips on these as well. You know, that a lot of time when you put in the memory card and then you put those clips up in place, and with the power supply and everything else, this thing is these are hard to get a tool down in there to back off the clips to be able to pull the memory card out of there. And the Type 3 Model 80 planar only runs with these 4 megabyte modules, each one of these. And normally this would have come with one memory card, one 4 megabyte memory card. And of course, I have 2 here, liking to max out what I have. That's probably a good show of the planar. I do have, as I say, I've got the batteries. I've got some spare diskette drives. I don't know if this one, works. But I have kind of my go-to 34-pin IBM. It's a Panasonic unit. These are my go-to drives because these are basically new old stock. I was even picking these up for like $9 USD when they're available. And I use those in the case of the 34-pin connector. And of course, there are the diskette drive adapters to adapt a conventional 1.44 megabyte floppy diskette and or diskette drive. And I could go through and pull one of those out at the point. I need to do a video on those, the aftermarket adapters and things like that. But I have those handy, so I've got everything lined up. Now, this unit, I don't know if I can, it's about the same weight as the Mall 60, but I don't know if I can, I'll have to go through and see if I can show, and of course I don't have the legs out so far. Oh, that's even nice. So let's take a look. We can take a look at the back. We see a couple of adapters in there, and these are the positions that they were in. There's a couple missing slot covers, and we see some items there that it's going to be interesting as we look inside. But that back looks in pretty good shape. Here's the back side. That looks pretty good, except for the bottom. I mean, and these things sometimes they sit on the floor, of course, and you'd have your janitorial crew mop the floors and things like that, and they would brush the mop up against the bottom side of the case and put that dirt there. People saw a flash of the top of it, but I'll show, just the same as this side. I don't know if that's from a mop or whatever. This thing is rough holding this in my lap, and my chair is not really doing all that well either. So we see the bezels missing off of the diskette drive. So this has been open. I don't expect this diskette drive to be in working condition, and I have the ability to react to that if possible. We see, okay, there's the badge, model 8386. Doesn't really differentiate between a type 1, 2, or 3. I need to get just my chair a little bit, because I need to rotate this around the right way to show the top. And of course, you have a handle. You can see a little bit of the grime, dirt and grime in the handle. I want to tilt it this way based on what I know about the insides. There's the top. And as the Mall 60, it was really kind of rough on the tops of these. They were stored upright. I just wanted to show the Mall 60 was missing kind of the label. There's the label for it. And it's an 8580-A31. And the serial number, the 23, being the manufacturing plant and serial number. I'm sorry, I can't hold that there for an extended period of time. I'm getting my workout. Let me sit down and look at chat to see comments, to see how well I'm covering things. Okay. Whew. Okay. Yeah, the headset is noise canceling, at least for the ear pieces that I have. And I don't know how it is for audience. Probably does the same thing. I mean, if it's doing noise canceling anyway, it's going to noise cancel for my hearing, and also how it goes through and puts the audio over to the computer. A little bit out of breath. So and I'm going to explain a little bit too when I get to the 65SX that it has that speaker pillar, same as the Model 80 and the Model 60, but then the batteries are not needed because it's got the non-volatile RAM modules. But that's for next week. And okay. Yeah, and Major Tom is saying the two ABE slots are very common in the PS/55 world, and the PS50/55 is it's the Japanese, effectively the PS2 series in the Japanese market. So yeah, and we'll talk about mouse nest or whatever in a moment. As I say a lot of time, and the slot covers missing are enough space for a mouse to get in. There's bugs that get in a lot of the time too. And okay, yeah, and checking eBay almost daily for PS2 stuff. Yeah, and I don't mean to run Roger out of PS2 stuff. You know, I'm speaking of Edgar Digital in Las Cruces, New Mexico. He had a few PS2s around that I'm getting warned again about low battery, low battery. I replaced the battery of the mouse the other day. I'm still doing good, and that's external to me. It's not my headset. I think my headset is all charged up, but if certainly if my audio drops out, let me know. I'll try and keep an eye on the audio levels. But yeah, there's stuff on PS2 stuff on eBay. I don't have that luxury now. I with kind of my finances and everything else to be able to go through and shop eBay as much as I had. I had to make do with what I have around, and I actually should have gone through. I don't know what the reason was that I really bought these systems from Roger, other than they put the sad puppy dog eyes on me that I had to go through, kicking over some of my other spares. You'll see the reason for those in a moment. I'll probably bring those out, get those out of the way. And I got all the three systems for 125 USD from Roger. That was the price that he had for that. We'll get to the okay. And I don't know when Major Tom has other things going on, but he's here for now. Let's get the case cover cracked open with him on chat at least. And let's look at the inside. There's the foam condition. Now, the replacement foam that IBM has here is in outstanding condition. The lower stuff, it's the old stuff, it's drooping, not quite turned to mush. The lower pieces, it's disintegrated a little bit in the areas that it's just as short, it's the thin runs. But otherwise, that foam looks in pretty good shape. There's dust on all the vertical, or excuse me, all the horizontal surfaces. And just like the Model 80, and this even came out when I opened the cover, just like the Model 60 that I had, everything that is a vertical surface, the planar and everything else, is in relatively good shape. There's not dust, of course, since the dust And I'm sure for the top edge of the chips and other surfaces, there's probably dust and things like that. But for the adapters that are in place, of course, there's a coating of dust across them, especially those that are beneath in the lower section of the case. The from the exposed slot covers, we see even full assemblies like this somehow that are in there. You don't know if that you wouldn't think that that would be something a mouse or something else dragged in there when it was green. It's now dried out. You wouldn't think that the cover would be closed on something like that, of how that got into the case. But the that the two covers are on either side are open, so there is quite a bit of junk. You know, this might have been kind of nesting, is the bad thing for and I'm going to get this out, my brush, just to get, and there's a little bit of foam pieces that may have been gathered by a mouse or something else as a nest. I don't really see any necessarily any that might be a mouse dropping. I don't know. I don't see any level of mouse droppings that you would probably have for a rodent being inside. It does have not as bad as the Model 60, but it does have some corrosion. Looks a little green. Looks like maybe you know, moisture. Maybe that mop, or what I believe is a mop from the cleaning crew. You know, they move a mop around and they just slosh up against the side of these cases when they would clean equipment rooms, not really being careful for what the computers are. But quite a bit of and hopefully the swamp cooler's blowing some of that back in as I go through and dust, just the air coming across the bottom. And of course, I'm running the swamp cooler. It's very dry outside for New Mexico right now. We've got fires burning, forest fires, range fires burning. But we run swamp coolers for our cooling, and that adds moisture to the air. Just you've got basically cardboard or a foam mesh on the sides that water drips down on from channels up above, and the air blows through that. They use the water to cool that. You have a pad, pads on all the sides of the air intake of the unit, and then it blows that air through that, the moisture. And the reason I say that is that it adds moisture to the air, and so it is good for cutting down any potential for static discharge as well. Just with the moisture being able to shed electrical charges and things like that as well. Now we see, I don't know the reason for the cardboard insert here. If someone viewed that as a spacer, air baffle, something else, but we'll pull that out. I needed to have a trash can up front as well. So we've got a couple labels. I don't know where those are from. We there's another one. I don't know if that's what label that is from where. Um, Now, looking at, other than the general overview of the case, dust even on the battery, you can see that this is a later Model 80 because it doesn't have the backing pieces of the diskette drive cage. Okay, they just pulled that off. They're using a 34-pin cable, and it looks to be relatively, well, I'll have to look at that because it's got the tape over the end of it. I think that they go through and they reorganize some of the, it's not one for one for those first 34 pins of the 40-pin cable. We'll get looking at that in a moment. The okay, I guess that does have, no, it doesn't have rails. So I've still got plastic rails I could put on this, but I'm running out of screws, actually, the mounting screws. I'll have to get some more of those. I'm not necessarily going to be worried about putting rails on for the power up or anything else. This holds the drive enough in place. And so that's fine. Now, this is, since this is an 8580-A31, it is a SCSI model. We'll look at the SCSI card here in a moment as well. Now, the memory boards, and it's interesting to note as well, this drive is in there effectively backwards. It's got the power connector and the SCSI connection on this side of the drive. And for all, intents otherwise, this is in there effectively backwards. And so, I mean, I'll go through and probably pull the drive just to go through and to take a look at it. Now, for the horizontal surfaces, the back side, the top side of this memory board in here does have dust on it. And enough dust that it may even affect continuity, may have the ability to pass electricity across between electrical, the solder exposed and things like that, the traces on the circuit board. So I will go through and pull these, and I will probably even switch these out for going through and testing this machine, powering it on. And as I could say, it's very hard to get in here with the power supply. You have the drive cage and everything else for the hard drive. Very hard to get at these clips otherwise. Now, I did go through and I did unfasten the lower memory board because I saw it's not really very visible from this, but there is a difference in height in these memory boards. I knew that this was different. I could see that this looked like a factory board. I knew that the top one, I knew that factory board, or that top slot would probably be factory memory, and this would be aftermarket RAM. So I pulled this and found out, and we'll show in a moment as well. Now, normally the older modules, the so-called sugar cube modules for the Model 80, the ones that the Type 1 and Type 2 came out with, they typically had a plastic piece, a clear plastic piece on the back side of these memory boards just for not shorting out an adjacent memory card. And if you're on the lower, had the lower memory board in place, or the power supply being a metal background. But these 4 megabyte modules do not have a clear plastic back. Now, here's the lower board that I did pull out earlier. This actually looks to be a Kingston style. I do have a Kingston, regular Kingston memory card I can pull out. And I've got, as a comparison, and you can see on that one, it's really marked Kingston, and it's got the same style chips on this one, but that is unmarked. Major Tom saw the logo as I did. I don't know what orientation this is. And we'll try and get it where the light does very good on this. Turn on my light ring. There is that logo, and it's probably in this orientation. That whatever company logo that is. There's a closer view of it. That was all clean this morning. Took a shower and everything else. I'm gonna get grimy. I'm gonna have to use my hand sanitizer. So there's the Kingston I have with Edgar. We'll pull that module out. I've got to undo the clips. Of the wow. And I do have a tool I guess I can use. I've got my because you need to undo these clips before and see, this is just impossible with even with tools. I don't know if IBM had a particular tool for this unique of I may have to tip out this one edge and see if I can get it out the other way. Let me catch up with chat. Where is my mouse? There's my mouse. Okay. Yeah, always picking up extra parts and everything else, yes. And yeah, that logo, I'd have to say it looks kind of familiar as well, but it's really, I don't know what it is either. Yeah, I might have to just tip this out because with the dust, at least I want to clean this. I don't want to go through and have this powered on with all this dust on it. And that, okay, yeah, just by rotating the board, and see, there's the even coat of dust on there. You can almost see even a pattern, probably off the fan and everything else of it being close, of how even being nestled. Oh, that's from the PSU plug, blocking or channeling the airflow, kind of. And it laying over in a loop this way. So I don't know if that creates like a little bit of a vortex or something else there. Otherwise, you'd hope that nothing would be up there and scraping the dust out, a bug or something else, but rather a good pattern in how the dust is accumulating there. And we can kind of look under it. Of course, there's dust that's along the top of the chips and things like that. As I say, the air, that really throws my headset for a loop too. with the noise cancellation. I just want to do some basics. Top of the power supply is dirty, not quite as dirty as the MUL 60, but it does have a coating. Again, just the same as the MUL 60. I have my nose running too. There's no openings really at the top for that dust to get down the power supply. So that's kind of good in a lot of regard. And it's actually where the PCB is across the top here, and it has the components hanging from that basically being soldered into that PCB being the main assembly in here. I can see a little bit into the PSU. The PSU looks pretty shiny. Has FRU on the side of it and everything. I just wanted to blow dust off the top edge of this. And it's funny, the battery is not even fully clipped in. I mean, it's making contact on the other side probably. I could probably go through and test voltages prior to firing it up. As I say, the hard drive is loose. Effectively, it's not strapped in. And of course, I already disconnected the power lead. And I don't want to get those too dusty on top. Okay. And so this is a Seagate ST418 or 4182N. And serial number and all that. One or more patents. And I think this may be the factory drive. I'm not really sure. I don't know if this is more like a pull strap. It's not a mounting. Normally this would be that would be the holes for mounting the rails to hold this in. Just our bronze, and you can see what side was up basically from this. The back side is what that looks like. And so, yeah, I don't know if that is the factory drive, but probably so. Normally this would be in the back bay. Oh, and I forgot, we saw, and Roger showed me this as we went through and examined things. And I was worried at first because the way that these strands look, and but there are the keys to this unit. The cylinder lock keys. And I guess for the case side, I could truly verify that this is the side cover of the 3 that went with the MUL 80 by checking the keys in the lock. Let's do that. I just wanted to get a little bit of the dust out. There's still the strands from the packing tape that's in here as well. Do another. Okay, now we can see underneath as well that it is a standard Intel 386DX, and it's got the cache controller, no math coprocessor in there, but you see how much those are beneath the drive cage. How much they're obscured. There's no space over the top of them. Of course, for the 386DX level, it's not really much concern about having a heat sink or the heat generating. But the drive is just right on top of where that would be. Now, I need to, and the 65SX has a hard drive carrier, the metal hard drive carrier that you'll see. I do have spares of those. And so being that adapts to the 3.5-inch drive type, those gave a little bit more space. And IBM used those on some of these models for a smaller drive. Of course, in that case, it would have to be the SCSI drives, because the MFM. Well, MFM did come in the in smaller packages, a smaller form factor, 3.5-inch. But normally that would be a SCSI drive that would be in those carriers, those bay adapters. Now we're going to go through just moving our way down. Hopefully I've got some consistency in how I'm going through. This still has tape wrapped around portions of the ribbon cable, and on the end we see the terminator, like Arnold. There's the FRU. That the drive itself may have not had termination on it. Possible. I don't see any switches or any. Well, there's a resistor pack, but probably not for the bus. So, and then really for the jumper levels, they'd set the SCSI ID. I don't know if they would do termination. I don't have my pocket reference handy too. The jumpers here, setting SCSI ID. There's not really any label as far as what those jumper settings to be. There is some resistor packs and stuff like that. As I say, I don't know, and that looks like probably a terminating. That was where you would put the terminating resistor pack here. Of course, it's vacated in this case. So that was what was used as termination options. For the drive being reversed from where it should have been, still with the terminator here, I believe that this is probably the original drive, the original cable setup to this. And of course, it's got the strange, edge connector for the SCSI board. Now, I did go through, and I did pull, the SCSI adapter out to take a look. And I do have, and I want people to notice the position. This is not in slot 8, and for the Type 3 planar, the slot 8 is finally 32-bit. And slot 8 is normally where you would have the hard drive controller, especially in the case of IBM SCSI. A SCSI adapter on microchannel would normally be that slot 8. And it is in slot 7, which is a 16-bit slot. It's in slot 7. We'll get to the network interface board in a moment here too. Okay, I should have had that retain screw loose because I did pull these out. And what I did, what you can see with the dust is I swiped across the ROM chips just to be sure of what level that they were. And 2 of these are the ROM extension, that 64F4376 and 64F4377. Those are ROM extensions to the system, and even the hard drive capacity, the limitation, the max capacity is a function of those chips. I think this is a 1 gigabyte or smaller by that ROM extension, and then the microcode. And the microcode we see there is the 8233. And that interfaces back to the SCSI level, the microcode version of the SCSI adapters. The 8032 is the controller, microcontroller. No, it's not the 8. Okay. So this is the 8032. That is the microcontroller for this SCSI board. This is the Tribble adapter. And of course, not having the cache, the unit with the cache higher end is called the Spock, codenamed the Spock. Now, the Tribble is going to be the factory option for the Model 80, and also for the Model 65SX that we see next week. It also has a Tribble in it. This board is dusty. It has the terminating resistor pack. This actually looks like, I think, a newer form of a Tribble by the resistor pack and everything else that's visible there. Now, that board it's dusty. I could dust it off. Again, I do have, I did bring spare Tribble adapters that I've had. In fact, I need to see if the microcode versions are the same. Yeah, so the spare, and I have a couple of them, but I've got the spare Tribble adapter just for the thought that I may not want to power this up with, even after cleaning it, with that level of dust on it. That looks like moist dust there. And even for these being baked outside in the Las Cruces heat, it could still have moisture, the ability to conduct that electricity, and really the adapter, that's moisture probably. The bottom side looks fine, looks clean. You can tell that these units were in what position they were stored, but top side of that board is just, it looks pretty ugly. It's interesting that they have the full length crystal protector, and that's a very short size crystal. I almost thought the crystal was missing. And then this, the full-sized one. But for all the microcode and everything else, I've got a spare that I would go through and attempt to work with. We can use the cable. I think the cable's in good enough shape. We get down to the network interface board. And I also want people to notice that it is in slot 3, which is a 16-bit slot again. And on either side, you have 32-bit, 32-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit. And they put it in the 16-bit slot when they had 32-bit slots available. And we can see the dust up to. And I'm relatively certain that this was in a 16-bit slot, but by the dust coating, maybe that was in 32-bit. I think I put it back in the same slot, or that was the same slot that I observed when I took off the cover. I made a mental note at the time that the two adapters that were in there were 32-bit adapters, and they were both put in 16-bit slots. Especially for the Tribble, I couldn't figure that out at all. I would have thought that it would have needed, or should have been. It works in a 16-bit slot, of course, like with the 65SX. But for some reason, I think people had them in the 16-bit slots. I don't. Let's do a comparison. I mean, those 32-bit sections look relatively clean. There, it's got some dust on the treble for that 32-bit section. It's got some dust on the same way here. There's spider. I would not run that board in a system. It would have to be dusted beyond probably cleaned because it's got a, and this is an Etherlink 3 from 3Com for someone that's not familiar otherwise. It's got the TP connector and the AUI connector on the back. A good board. I've got other boards of this. When I go to power this on, I will not likely have this network adapter in there. There may be an operating system on the SCSI drive that wants to see this network adapter. That's fine too. I don't want to run that. I don't want to run the system with that adapter in it, in the condition it's in with the dust. Now, the planer, and it's got a sticker in the back, very hard to see, but it's got system board, silkscreen has part number 33F5571, and it also has an orange label, FRU 85F0046. I said if I cough, I would raise the boom, but yeah, Duke Nukem. Wow, I don't even know what OS or anything else. I'm hoping this is the original drive. Now the planer looks in good enough shape. I'm just looking at anything. This lower corner does maybe look like it's had moisture. I think I can get by. There's of course dust on the top of the microchannel slots. I looked at the BIOS and things like that. Everything I saw looked to be where it's not any version that's unknown. I mean, these are known versions of BIOS and things like that. Otherwise, more dust in the corner. This had to be where just these slot covers were off for so long that it took on dust through those openings. If not even animals or plants even will go through and grow inside and then dry out and sever the stems and things like that, leaving those leaves and stuff like that. I think I'm good for that for the planer. And I've got a replacement planer too. Now I'm going to go through, and I do have, if I'm going to have the 3Com board pulled, I mean, the configuration is going to be different even if the battery's good. Let's go through. Here's the memory cards I talked about. I'm going to go through, and anything with dust on the surface that could be conductive, I'm going to do straight away. I'm going to do replacements that I know are tested good in this case. So let's go through. Just because my curiosity's up, we're going to pull the battery. I mean, it looked like it's still making contact and everything else, but we're going to have to reconfigure this anyway. Okay, so probably small contact is positive. Big contact is negative. And we're getting that battery is absolutely flat. So we will. I thought I saw something briefly. Yeah, and it's just the meter. It's just spurious indications of the meter because that's even holding that. Yeah, it's just flat. So we'll put a new battery in. We are going to get the tribble that I have as a spare that is dust free. Normally this would have been, I believe that this would have been tested. I mean, it looks in good condition. Looks like all the parts are there. I don't know for a fact if I've tested this before. Now, since we're going through and changing the configuration right from the start, I am going to pull the slot cover from 8, from position 8, and the SCSI adapter is going to go into slot 8 as it is supposed to. Now, I did see, when I was reading online, I did see something identifying that the tribble would be in a 16-bit slot, but as far as I know, for this model, this should be where the tribble was in that slot 8. I don't think that IBM would have done from the factory would have had a SCSI adapter, 32-bit SCSI adapter in a 16-bit slot in a factory configuration. Okay. We're just going to leave the kind of the cable out. That. And I haven't put a battery in yet. We're going to get our, and we could go through and we could have one module in there. I'm not going to put the clips on, but since the system had 2 4-megabyte modules, for the purpose of the OS, what may happen to be on this drive, I'm going to put 2 4-megabyte modules on there. We need the power. Where did I put the? Oh, on top. Okay. And this is strapped together almost like a factory configuration for 2 drives. Just really confuses me why that drive was, it may have been somebody pulled it just to look. And this is kind of strung through, interlaced with itself. Wow. So that is, I'm not going to use the right angle plug. I'm going to use, I think, what was the plug before that was in use. Was that straight on plug. I'll probably plug it into this. It won't make much difference. I'll go through and plug it into this location, the forward location. Getting this is top being unclean. Okay, so power, SCSI, memory. Next we have battery. And let me see what the, okay, so we've been going almost an hour with the true live stream. Oh, over an hour. That's fine. Yeah, and just an eye towards the chat. I'm not going to run dusty boards in mine. I would at least go through and brush, but even the brush, it's just there's a potential for dust, um, and I had a little something pop off. Well, that's actually for the speaker. Okay. Oh, and this. Oh, and that's that extra lead on the speaker pillar. Well, we've got a fresh battery in there. We don't know if the diskette drive functions yet. I need to get to the point where I make a reference diskette, and I can probably do it with just a mouse. I don't really have, I may need to get a more conventional style mouse pad. Okay. Ugh. I don't really have a flat surface I can use. And so there's our Ardent tool. And we'll drill down. I mean, there is the directory for all the diskettes. We'll just drill down to, and of course, all the reference diskette images. It's going to be the version 1.12. And the link from those is going to be, and I'll have to even see on this. Yeah, it's a 64-bit. And I don't have Win image on this either. And that zip file has probably got to where it's I didn't think this out because I don't have a 32-bit system. I don't have a system at hand that I can really do a I've got the other reference diskettes I made. I probably don't have those around. Yikes. Okay. Let's I'm just looking at getting into where do I have my new okay. So yeah, and I don't have a 32-bit system up here anymore. I don't have my main so I'll have to see how I can do. I'm just going to create a ref disk folder on my C drive, and we are going to do a paste. Okay, let's see. Man, it'd been nice too if oh yeah, app launcher update, whatever. It'd have been nice to see so Windows system. You know, if Microsoft would have done, and this shows up on my other display. So hold on, I've got to switch this over to my upper display. For this being 64-bit system, I am not very confident that this will work correctly. Okay, and so that's RF. We probably will put a need to put a diskette in the drive. I am guessing that these diskette drives are the diskettes are 70 80A. Yeah, programmer feature and it names executable cannot run due to incompatibility with a 64-bit version of Windows. So we are going to get into an instance where I didn't think this out. Yeah, as I say, it'd be nice if Microsoft made the command prompt so you could run it in 32-bit mode, something like that. Extracting. Let's look at, as I say, I don't have WinImage on here, although it's possible to download. And normally I have a licensed version of WinImage. I don't know what the key is right off the top of my head. But we're going to, we'll probably just download. Okay. Where's my mouse? Okay, I have the UAC popping up on my other display. Could not. What? Okay. Have the UAC popping up again. I wish I could get my and the other monitor is the primary. So this is WinImage is going to even give me an error here. Am I going to have one of those days? I have one of those days that I can't find where my mouse. And what's the warning for this? Because the Visual C runtime is not found. Where is a darn... Okay, let's find. Let's do a zip. Okay, let's extract. Extract all. It's probably prompting us for a file location, and of course, again, it's putting that on my primary monitor. So we are going to say for a directory of just C WinImage. Okay. Let's run it. Okay. Yeah, they say that it's dropping. This is really nice for a presentation system because it has a secondary monitor in a location. And I can't move that dialog box. So it's probably a warning that it only is a trial version, blah, blah, blah. So I take this. Yeah, it's warning it's a trial version. Don't forget to register. I have a registered version of WinImage I use. Okay, so WinImage unregistered. At least we have it up on the right monitor. I can grab that primary monitor at least from here. We've got to go through again with my. I'm gonna get this piece of cardboard. I hope the wind doesn't catch it too much from the swamp cooler. Okay, so let's minimize that. Let's minimize the down. Well, I was gonna say let's minimize the download. Now that we have WinImage running, show in folder. Okay, so this is the zipped image. Extract all. We get the dialog box down below on the primary monitor again. I have a relatively better mouse pad now than my knee, and I still can't. Okay, so we're gonna browse. I'm gonna go to that ref disk folder. And select folder, extract. Okay. Are we to the point? Where's our WinImage? We want to open this PC. I guess I could have left it in the download directory. Okay. So we want to go through and we ultimately want to, let's go through and format and write disk. Where is that? I don't see any okay. And I need to make sure. Okay. Oh, and this file, this already has. So is it that? Did it do it that quick? Set up. This is a reference diskette image, but I'm not sure if I had this had that on there previously. So keyboard shortcut to refresh a diskette listing. And that's got something too. Yeah, these are probably uh, images I've already done. I've got the box of diskettes. Not that I don't, if it just overwrites something, I'd be fine too. I mean, and when image would normally go through and overwrite um, and I get that warning of low battery again on this. Yep, and this shrink wrap is. See these slot covers, you can use them, the microchannel slot covers, you can use them as knives. They're sharp. I'm using it as a kind of an envelope opener with this shrink wrap. This is a brand new box of diskettes. It's supposed to be pre-formatted. I think I figured out that these worked pretty good. F5. There should be no contents on this diskette. Okay, let's try that again. Right disk. Is it giving me a dialog box anywhere? It's not running the drive. Okay, use floppy A. This is not giving me any dialog box of. I don't know if that's just because it's a USB floppy or what. Okay. We get this. I wanted to to stop and start WinImage again, unregistered. Is there an ability to write a diskette It should be with the unregistered version. It's giving me the icons with an unregistered version of WinImage. I should be able to write a diskette, I would think. So okay. Next, we go through and we are going to relocate to my recordings. Yeah, the evaluation version should do fine. I'm confused why this would go through and be such a pain. What I'm going to do is I'm going to download WinImage on my recording system here. It was even kooky how it didn't do. I'm going to do the zip version. Okay. So we're going to go through, extract all. And the same way I don't have the registered version of WinImage. I realized I could put the registered version on several systems. And that it would work. But I just haven't. I mean, I haven't had the need, and I need to have it on 64-bit systems because the to go through and work with these reference diskettes. I didn't plan out enough to where I okay. So come on. Okay, I want the zipped image. Same thing. I tried to execute the self extracting, and I okay. So I've okay. So oh, okay. Okay. select folder, extract. Oh my goodness. Okay, is this going to launch? Oh, and I have the RD4 USB on this if let's try that. Since I have in fact it's and plug my diskette drive in. Um is this going to work for okay. And we want to go to ref disk. Oh, it's a non-RD file. It's an image file. Okay, that's doing it. Well, no, I have my tweener system here. Well, I have my tweener system still. I'm not upgrading it or anything else. But I have it at the new studio location. I don't have it up here. I've moved it already. And that's what I'd normally do is I'd pull out that tweener system and bam, I'd be there. But at least I'm using the RD4 USB program. It's from a French guy. That I had it installed on here, but it was not set up yet. And then when I tried to open the image file, it prompted me, okay, do an app, because that evaluation of version of WinImage is not registered on the system. It just puts it on in a folder on the hard drive, which is fine. So, but we're game places. It's going through and that's working. I didn't even have to use the Win image here, although I could try that later on too. And I normally don't want to do a directory listing or anything else like that. And I guess I could have been better prepared as far as the reference diskette, if all things being equal. Now on the Mul 60, I did a stream, hour-long stream anyway, and okay, so I have a reference diskette image now. All that is up on my screen there. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to download the WinImage program. If I'd have gone over to this system, my recording system, I'd have been set. So we are to the point. Okay, So this diskette drive that's in here, the diskette does not want to latch, doesn't even let it be, and I don't want to damage the diskette or anything like that, but it doesn't even want it to be inserted. Okay, there I heard a click. Okay, I guess that's seated. We'll try it because we can always make another reference diskette even if this one gets damaged. I want to see if this diskette drive will work. So what do we always do with our PS2s? Just to ensure basic operation, we pull out our parallel port postcode reader. Works with every PS2. If you have PS2s that you're going through and using, you need to get one of these just for the ability to do quick diagnostics. And just as with the Mall 60, I've got it on a short cable length. So that it can be seen better. Okay. Now the back of the planer looks pretty good. The ports that are there look relatively clean. I've got that up on for my video capture. Did I go through and did I? Yeah, I took myself off the webcam screen. Okay, moment of truth. We are going to go through. I will put myself up on the built-in webcam so I can, my back is seen. I will get to where I can switch the video capture over to that. And we have power connected. Okay, so power light is on. SCSI drive is spinning up. I should have thought this through a little bit better on the postcode reader, but it's on a 16 is the last code passed. It's on 18. It's going through and counting the RAM. 165 error. Gives a not okay. I need to get my cardboard out of the way, get my keyboard up. Pressing F1 drops us in the basic. So that's saying diskette drive is no-go. So it's easy enough to do. On the back of the drive, I just go through. I'm still encountering that sticky mess up on top. Now I could go through and test this other diskette drive, but I think I'm just going to go to my go-to drive. Now we get to see that. Okay. So we get to see, I mean, you see the postcode reader now. We've seen that turning over. The planer seems like it's functional. Now we get to see this diskette drive connector. And like I say, for the 40 pin connector on the planer goes to 34 pins. It's notched for pin 1. So pin 1 does not make, is a no connective ultimately for drive A. Okay. Because it's not notched before, the drive B is fine. Drive A is notched. It's got the twist. Otherwise, it looks to be, no, there's some change in cabling at the 40 pin connector. And that, it doesn't look like that is very involved, but they do look like, it does look like they shift. I think they take a power lead from the lower end of the 40 pin connector and put it up towards the top, I think. Now, of course, normally I would not go through, let's go through power down. I mean, I'd be doing a warm reboot anyway, but our diskette drive is fine, just hanging there. I set my reference diskette here. Reference diskette in the drive. In fact, we can go through just to have it out of the way or whatever, rather than hanging. Powering up again. You can see the postcode reader turnover. Okay. Counting up to the 8 megabyte of RAM. Okay, so that time it didn't give us a not okay, but it had a valid diskette in the drive, and our go-to diskette drive works good in this case. So enter to continue. Okay. And yes, we can go through, automatically configure is fine. You can see why I have those go-to diskette. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, whatever, whatever. Okay. Okay, I'm going to leave the reference diskette in there because I want to set the time and date as well. I want to look at the SCSI setup as well. I should have gone through and should have pulled out another Etherlink 3 because I don't know, the operating system on that may want that. And of course, I've changed the slot number for the SCSI drive, for the SCSI adapter. And thank you for reporting that stream still looks good. YouTube goes through, it always talks about audio or video or something else. I'm still, in fact, I saw a brief notch. It went down to 2 megabyte as far as the upload side, and that was probably the black background. Takes less video compression. So it's able to upload that a little bit easier. Okay, so let's go through, we want to set features. So it's the 29th of November of 1903. Actually, it is 05. Almost have the date right. And it's almost noon here. Actually, 5:59. Okay. F3 for exit. Here's our revision levels. It always comes out pretty good for being left justified of how I have my webcam picture. Okay, we're just going to do a view. And so it shows for slot 8, we have the SCSI adapter, the treble. Set and view SCSI device configuration. Okay. And the device size of 155 megabyte. And I think for the A31 submodel, that is the original drive, I would think. Says it's device address 2. Normally, you would want to have this set to 6. Okay. SCSI adapter address ID 7. The SCSI device is the SCSI ID is 2, and I think that is going to be an issue with booting. I think. We want to eject the reference diskette. And on that, I'd have to look at the online for an IBM manual for that SCSI ID. I do have extra jumpers around if I had to. Okay, we are good. Okay, so I'm gonna hide my webcam image. And I didn't have the I had the parallel port postcode reader. I can probably put the mouse in there. I don't know what system that they're referring to there. DOS version 6.22. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. Let's go through. We can pull the parallel port. And we'll put this in for the mouse. Okay. Okay. So it loads the mouse, loads DOS key high, burnout 1000. Is that like a screensaver? Turns the numlock off. This DPEC is what it's trying to run. Once you exit it, it goes back to the root drive. Okay, students deinstall. So there's a DPEC key.exe. It checks to see. So this is giving a date in 1997, 3/11/1997 for or 7/15, July 15th of 1997 is a date I'm seeing. Okay. Okay, and I realize I'm in the way of okay. So there is talks about the version 4 iMaker writes the expiration key to your installation disk. Will prompt you for the system expiration date key. The system expiration date key unlocks the DPEC CBT system until a specific date. When the system expiration date is passed, so there's our screensaver. Okay. So what we could do here, being naughty, we could set, get me back on the screen here. So what happens if we set an earlier date before the expiration? Huh? Okay, we're just going to return to our root directory, even though we didn't have to. We're going to say date. We're going to say that is 05/22/1998. How about that? I knew it gave us a 1999 expiration date. Okay. So date. That's a Friday. That was a Friday. So we're going to go through cold reboot, or I mean warm reboot, excuse me. Control Delete. Setting a different date is the oldest trick in the book, as far as yeah, I just look at the chat. Good that I'm getting confirmation. And so the Release is 4.0 C. Enter is proceed. Student ID. I don't know what my student ID is. I don't know if it keys on ooh. Wow. I mean, and this would take some study. I have no idea. Or math. Oh, F1 does available courses. But look. So let's look at procedures, PRC. Oh, you can automatically select by arrow. How about that? You can go through and you can just select the course, enter proceed. Okay. We'll get lost in the minutia here. Okay, so options are F6, exit quickly, F12 is cancel. We have our backward, forward. Okay. I realize my webcam image is obscuring this, but that's kind of a rundown, I guess, of what that is. I could use F6 for a quick exit. F3 just looks like it goes steps back. So F6 is a quick exit. It's supposed to be a quick exit. Okay, it got us back. Okay, so we already saw that it's MS-DOS version 6.12 was obviously in service. Computer-based training. Well, that's good that you have access to that you're looking that up on Google as I'm digging otherwise. Let's see what else this has. So it's just got that, it's got PKZip. It's got that burnout.com. And that looks to be like a screensaver. And that is it. Otherwise. And quite a bit of the hard drive free. So we learned that the hard drive functions, okay. Okay. And I realize I'm over part of it. The copyright string of the ROM basic. We see the BIOS state there. I'd have to look to see if that is let me look back. ROM images. So I am on the ROM images page currently, scrolling down to the Model 80. It has the, okay, so the Type 3, it's got the February of 1990. This screensaver, though, so that looks like what is supposed to be, and that's BIOS revision number 2. So it looks like the Type 3 Model 80 planer had both BIOS revision 1 and BIOS revision 2. We have the latest BIOS revision, and that is already archived at the Arton tool. Yeah, as it shows there, the BIOS ID bytes, that F88002, that's F8 for the BIOS model. BIOS submodel is 80, ironically. We could go through and we could even run the system information tool on this at some time too. Seeing how it's a 386 system, it's supported. To see what reaction that we'd get there. I'd have to figure out where I've got my system information tool diskettes for that. So M for memory. And I should have my, let's turn off my other mouse and keyboard. I don't need to have them up and around. Might as well save their battery. Now my mouse here. Yeah, I've got a mouse cursor right in the middle of the screen. That was what that black block was. Okay. So from bottom, starting at 640K, all the way up to where our BIOS is and things like that. This this screensaver, I tell you, it looks like it left artifacts there for okay, an XMS information. It's got XMS version 3.00. Got all the upper memory blocks, all that other stuff, extended memory, blah, blah, blah. Just plain vanilla VGA for a Model 80 Type 3. No network because I have that Etherlink 3 pulled. Now, I didn't see anything else that would use the network card in that application. And so I don't know. It's funny. And that's the Logitech driver, which is fine. Logitech even went through and made some PS2 mice. I don't know about the vintage of these. Other adapters, game adapter not detected. It'd be fine to put a game adapter in there. Okay, so there's our hard drive parameters. Quite a bit of space free. And I didn't even have to look to see if that application if it would give any indication where it was set up. Single COM port, and it's got that 16550 serial port. Not detected Windows, IRQ status. I don't think that there's much other. Of course, we don't want the system. I don't think it'll seize up. So there's our terminate and stay resident programs, device drivers. So that's kind of cool. I think otherwise I plan to run the system information tool. And I think it was kind of cool looking over that application. I can always go through and revert the date back. And that's the oldest trick in the book, right? To go through and to do that. Something that simplistic. You tell, oh, the program expired on this date. Well, okay. Yeah, let's just go back and let's set a previous date to run the program. So that's longer than a 2-hour stream so far. We looked at everything to this system. We found that it's able to boot off of SCSI ID 2. I always thought that it was recommended that I always thought it was recommended that it would be a it's best to set SCSI ID 6. Where is my mouse? There is my mouse. Oh, why am I doing that? I wanted to go through and okay. So we got through to restore a Model 80 here. Of course, it is still very dirty. It looks like I'm able to clean that better than the Model 60. The dirt inside doesn't look like there's a corrosion or anything along that that bottom edge. In fact, let's go through and let's get me off the webcam here. Just back so I can get in view here. So this looks like it's dusty, but it cleans the surface. All the other horizontal surfaces right now are relatively clean. I've gone through and blown them out. I could go through and do the duster here, but I've got so much dirt on the front. And there's even dirt on the legs. I can go through and extend those and wipe those down. All sorts of stuff. There's quite a bit of dirt that came out of the bottom of this, but I'll probably go through and I can brush. This foam is in still pretty good shape. So this one, beyond also the 65SX is relatively cleaner. We'll see that next weekend. So, going through, it'll be real easy to there's some dust that you got to knock loose of the brush before it flows off. I need to clean that top. That still has some sticky stuff, black, tarry, and dust and things like that. But that looks like it ought to be pretty clean based on how it cleaned up from the Mall 60. And we did go through and change out some components. I didn't see anything to that application that maybe would have necessarily required 8 megabyte of RAM too, instead of just 4. And 4 megabyte is the minimum amount of RAM that you can have on a Type 3 because one board. But this is a good base system. That's why I say I want to try and run the system information tool. Be kind of cool maybe to have the UNPC program, transfer that over. I could this easily run the zip drive from the parallel port. And so I could put some files on that hard drive. A lot of that space on the hard drive is good. And this SCSI drive is really, even with the noise canceling, yeah, it muted my mic there temporarily as I went through and pulled it off my headset off my ears. I really can't hear for the cooler running otherwise. The drive doesn't sound loud at all, but I am wearing the noise cancellation headset. So that could be reducing what I'm able to hear here. But that it doesn't sound like it's really being noisier too much or anything like that. I need to put rails on the hard drive. I'll need to go through and swap out with the other diskette drive I have. I need to find out. Yeah, I promised I would go through and mute myself if I coughed. I need to go through and swap out the diskette drive, find out if the one I have out works. I can go through and take that apart and figure out what's going on with that. But this should clean up pretty quick and be a good system. Otherwise, it's kind of nice to have around. I don't know how much I'll go through and would use that application software that's on there, but I can load some other software and try that on there. But this is a lot easier than that Mall 60 was for all that, for some of the but I went through and I tried out other hard drives, and it didn't have, on the Mall 60 it didn't have the stock drive, and so I need to swap that out anyway. But I think that is going to be a good wrap of the going through and getting this thing ready. Next week we will have a the 65SX. I have to replace the non-volatile RAM modules in it to get it to work. And so I'll schedule that as soon as I can, and I'll try and be a little bit more prepared with a reference diskette. I know that was a large part of the time frame here, the recording going through. But Mama told you we'd have days like this, and at least I've got WinImage on some systems now. I can go through and give it the key, so I can have the full registered version by what I've registered, what I paid for WinImage. I'll have to look up what that key was. But we are good to go otherwise. I think I gave enough information here as we went through it to be general purpose information, to be helpful. So there we have the Mall 80 from Edgar Digital. Looks like it's running good. Needs some work, but it's going pretty good for now. If I mean, it seems like I had okay, I'll see you later, Hugh. I'm about ready to wrap up the stream as it is, as you may have guessed. Yeah, we had a good stream. I don't see it saw it normally went to pretty good viewership level, and that kind of carried through the stream. So I think we did pretty good. And all the system stats otherwise are looking good. So I will go through and wrap this up to say this is IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Thank you for everyone for tuning in, and I will see everybody soon, especially next weekend with the 65 SX. And that's fine for being a little bit too early for saying goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.